Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. Welcome. Just going to give it a few seconds here to settle in as some other guests join us. Let's see who we've got. Welcome, Erica. Welcome, Jennifer. Jim's here. Welcome, Gloria. Welcome, August. Welcome, Deborah. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Sam. Feel free to be on or off camera. Um, this is a web and website related and lead generational related panel discussion today. So everybody here is going to more or less be a fly on the wall to a couple of experts having a conversation and talking about the subject of leads and how to improve ways, at least digitally, that you can start to bring in more potential customers. So if you want to take any notes, if you'd like to grab a pen and paper, might be some good nuggets that come up. There might be a point in tonight's conversation where you have a question or you want more information about something someone said. If that's the case, you can type your question. And if you came with a question or something you're working on at any point, you can type your question into the chat, and we're going to have a portion towards the end of our event here today, which will allow us to answer just random questions from you, the audience, and hopefully give you some advice or some guidance or clarify something that we've said. Um, and if you have anything specifically that you're maybe dealing with in terms of looking to improve your performance as it relates to getting new customers, we can talk about it. And then I will mention this is not, there's no real agenda here. This is not a sales event. This is not a solicitation event. This is to provide information and education to you. You're going to hear from some experts. And at the end, there'll be an opportunity if anyone would like to connect with any one of us to actually talk one-to-one with you and figure out how we can really work with you and help you or guide you. We offer complimentary conversations that we offer to all of you, and you can reach out to each and every one of us and have a conversation for free to see how we can help you, point you in the right direction, give you some good advice, or if there's something that you might want some work on in your project, we could potentially help you. Um, I think we've got a couple minutes in. Thank you for letting me go through that intro. My name is Joshua Lamothe, and I'm the founder of this organization, Webheads United. And obviously, we have got a couple people in the room with similar backgrounds. They are a portion of the members of the Webheads. We are a group of independent web professionals. Most of us have been doing this for well over 10 years, in some cases 30, 35 years we've been in this business. And we have a lot of expertise to offer. Primarily, we work directly with clients one-to-one, so we're really personal and real in our approach to doing things. And we really treat everybody like an individual because everybody's got different projects and businesses and goals and things like that. I'm going to give everybody a chance to introduce themselves before we jump into our discussion. I'll probably circle back and just give you some guidelines for the people who are just joining us. But I want to introduce everybody first. Let's start with Pia. You want to say hi, Pia?
Sure thing. Good evening, everyone. I'm Pia Civiletti of Centium Associates, and I work with my clients on strategy, branding, website development, marketing, graphics, and just general consulting around all those areas. So glad to meet all of you, and hopefully you enjoy our conversations.
Awesome. Thank you, Pia. Robert?
I'm Robert Coxe. I have a Selfium Design, do websites, blogging, and SEO for environmental conservation organizations. And I also have my own blog on native plants and butterfly gardens. And I'll be talking about blogging mostly.
Thanks, Robert. And Tom?
Yeah, Tom Bartholomew here in Northern Michigan, and I do search engine optimization, Google Ads management, web design, and automations for local service providers. And yeah, I look forward to tonight's talk, and I just want to say thank you for coming out and listen to us.
All right. And my name once again is Joshua Lamothe. My company is called Grassroots Consulting, and I work with small business owners primarily to help them to better connect with their best clients through web design, hosting, management, brand design, messaging, and basically making sure they have an effective web presence. So let's jump in. We're going to actually start our conversation. I'll just reiterate for those of us who were coming in while we were speaking. This is going to be a panel discussion among 4 of us experts. So you'll all be sort of a fly on the wall listening to what we're talking about. We're going to have a dynamic conversation about approaching this conversation of lead generation from different perspectives. And then at the end, everyone will have a chance to ask some questions if they'd like to, presuming you're here because you're at some stage in your project. You're either just getting started, or you've been working with someone and it's not quite working out, or you've been trying to do it on your own and maybe it's not quite working out. So, I encourage everybody to speak up and say, introduce yourself afterwards and say what brought you here today, and let us help you the best way we can. But let me just preface every conversation like this before we jump in. So this conversation is about leads, right? And there's a lot of talk about getting leads. What are leads? Leads are basically opportunities for potential business, new business, right? And we tend to sort of have the conversation around this term called leads, but we don't really connect. Is that what we're looking for? Are great clients. We're looking for our ideal clients, our best clients. We're not looking to just get on the phone with a bunch of potential leads who may not really be quality. We're looking to find quality, and we're looking to connect with people who can most benefit from our products and services. So everything we're going to talk about tonight is going to be around tips or techniques or just different aspects of how we make better and better quality contacts that we can potentially convert them into new customers. Okay, so it's not leads for lead's sake. The whole context is great, ideal clients. So I want to give each webhead a chance to sort of introduce himself from their perspective as it relates to lead generation. And then we'll sort of circle back and ask some more questions. So I'm going to call on each webhead, and if you could just sort of give us a little bit of how you and your angle or your approach when you're working with clients, how do you work with them to plan for what kind of client that they're actually working for? So how do you identify the clients? What is your process? What do you do at the very beginning phase of a project? Let's go to Tom first. And Tom, just also explain what angle you do, because I know you mentioned it, but talk about your specialty as well.
Sure. So this is I love this topic about generating leads, because that's one of my specialties, is generating leads through search engine optimization and Google Ads management. So those are 2 ways. One is long-term investment SEO, and Google Ads is a little bit, maybe a higher volume and a little bit quicker than what SEO is. So to your question, what I like to do when I start working with the customer, one of the first things I'd like to do is figure out who their customer is. Because if I don't know who their customer is, I can't even craft up a marketing plan to generate leads. So we'll start with the buyer persona, and I'm actually going to share one in the chat. It's one that we've all used through the web heads, through SEMrush, but it gives some different templates there. So what you're doing is you want to find out who is your customer. So when you fill that out, you're thinking about who are you trying to find, that ideal person. And what that'll do is that will shape your message. It will shape your marketing to be able to find your leads, because now you'll be able to, when you come and work with someone like myself or Josh or Pia or Robert, you could say, hey, I've figured out who my ideal buyer or buyers, multiple, you can have 3 or 4, depending on what type of product or service you have. And then you can show it, and then we can understand who you're trying to target. And it helps so much, because now we know where to look. We know what kind of voice that we should be using to talk to them. So a buyer persona is, in my opinion, number one. We need to have that before we can do anything. Otherwise, we're doing the spaghetti testing, right? Everybody's heard of that, where you take some spaghetti and you throw it at the wall and hope that it sticks. And we don't want to do that. So a buyer persona helps us not waste our money on marketing that doesn't work.
Awesome. That's great. It's so common that we encounter people, and it's not no one's fault. We haven't been really taught this, but to really, really, really understand our client, to really, really deeply know who we're talking to, and not just superficial stuff like demographics per se, but like their habits and their concerns and what they're actually experiencing while dealing with a challenge or a problem that you are a solution for. So doing that in a very strategic and proper way is really important. I want to jump to Pia. Pia, do you want to add anything to the conversation around, because you're in strategy, right? So how does strategy, when you're first starting out with somebody, relate to what Tom was saying about buyer personas? And then what else do you suggest is really important at the beginning stages of lead generation?
Well, I kind of go back to what I usually find with the clients I work with is that a lot of times they don't understand really the whole business that they're actually in, and what that entails and what that strategy is going to be. So what they want to achieve in the end, in a sense, right? Or maybe it's a yearly goals or whatever, and then back up from there and then figure out, well, to achieve what I need to achieve, either to make enough money, to bring so much in, to get so many clients or whatever that is, then go back to, okay, so what type of business are they in? And I like to look at the industry, and there are differences, going across different industries about how you get your clients. And if you're an in-person kind of, business, or you're an only online kind of business, that makes a big difference in how you're going to find your leads. So really understanding the business and how you do your business, and then looking and how you're going to do it in a sense of tools and all that kind of stuff, then you can start to kind of frame up with, okay, so in this environment, this is what you're going to look for. What kind of client you're going to look for, and how are you going to get those clients? What are the different ways you can get it? And there may be other instances you look at and say, well, if this one's like in-person type of environment, what are you going to be looking at, and what kind of conversations you're going to have with them in person, and how are you going to attract them, and then how are you going to get them through your lead funnel? So it's going to be a little bit different, and I like to figure out with my clients, do you have one or the other, or both? And let's do it. And you might have to do several strategies at the same time, just running along each other, to get to get to your goal, really. And so that's, I kind of look at, and that's kind of all wrapped into like the branding and how you brand your business and how you show up in that way, and that it's consistent. So regardless if you're online or in person, you do want to show up consistent. So no matter who you're talking to, you can easily bring that lead on, and when they look at you, they say, oh, professional, it's consistent. When I see either that logo, or I see that, that combination of things, I know who I'm talking to. I know it's this business. So I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in addition to knowing exactly who your customer is, it's then turning that knowledge into elements that are going to attract them and or resonate with them. You can use those kinds of words, but that's really what we're doing. We're trying to grab their attention. And if we don't know who they are deeply, how can we possibly communicate with them through language, video, imagery, color, all these elements that make up the brand that you're talking about? Has to be starting from our knowledge of who our client is. And that's really important. That's great. And we'll go a little deeper on that subject, because that's a really important subject. I want to jump to Robert. I want everybody to get a chance to speak. Robert, your specialty is really around blogging. And for those who probably don't need a really quick, blogging, obviously we're talking about content writing, article writing, informational content writing as a strategy to attract potential customers, depending on if your customers are reading blogs, right? Of course, we have to know that. But when it comes to blogs and writing, Robert, how important is it when you're talking about knowing your customer, is knowing the subjects that you're writing about? So what do you do, and how do you identify the subjects that you're going to write about as it relates to, knowing your client?
Well, in my case, I'm working with conservation organizations. So they're not, in some cases, they're looking for some business, but they're more looking for members and trying to get their mission or message out. to people. And that's where blogging can really help, is they can talk about their subject and be able to get their message out so people can understand why they're doing what they're doing. And so how do you figure out what to write about? Well, one thing I use often quite a bit is Google Trends. That way you can enter in a subject and see, is this subject really resonating in a particular area? Or is it declining, or how exactly it's working? So if there's a subject that's uptrending or getting more interesting, you want to try to write about that subject, because then you can sort of ride the wave upwards. And some things are seasonal. Like in my blog, I talk about native plants and butterfly gardens. Well, summer, things are going really well. Winter, it starts to decline. But fortunately, because we're on the internet, and because what I write about, the butterflies and the plants, occur anywhere in the globe, I can switch in the winter over to places like Australia or whatnot. But local land conservancies can't do that. They're stuck in their spot. But they want to make sure that they get what they're talking about out in a language that their local people can understand. And it can be different in different parts of the country. So, it's very important to get it in the right language, as Pia and Tom were talking about. And also, you want to make sure you're using the right social media channels. And I learned this myself in my own blog, and I've seen it with other organizations. I started with Facebook, that everybody uses. But a lot of my audience wasn't there. They were in Pinterest. And also, a lot of the science, really serious science people and conservationists are hanging out on Mastodon and or in the Fediverse. So, I use a lot of stuff from that. And that's where you can find a lot of the really good articles that can help my clients, especially in conservation, find what they need. So you want to pick the right social media, the right language, and you want to make sure you're following this, subjects as they come up in Google Trends.
That's great. Thank you, Robert. I put a link to Google Trends if anyone would like to check that out and play around with that. And Robert, if there's any other tools to help people to choose and find subjects that people are looking for, I know there's a couple free tools out there. If you don't mind putting a link to one or two of them in the chat for people, that would be good. What Robert's kind of pointing to is, if you're going to be positioning yourself as an expert, and you're going to be doing blog writing or article writing as a way to present your information and demonstrate your expertise, those blog posts are also a source of marketing. Each one of those is an opportunity to, like he said, publish on a social media network or add aggregate content to your website so that your website grows and becomes more noticeable. But if you don't know, again, it goes back to, and we're going to emphasize this throughout the whole important thing, throughout the whole text, that's very, very important, is if you don't truly know where your ideal customers are hanging out online, where they're hanging out in person, and where and what they're actually interested in looking at, it's going to be very difficult to write copy of any kind, doing ads like Tom does, or website copy or blog copy. That's really highly effective. So let's go a little deeper into that. I want to go back to Pia. Pia, how important is messaging, meaning like written copy, when it comes to what you think is an effective lead generation strategy? Where is that copy needed mostly, and what makes that messaging really important, or what is good messaging?
Well, I mean, obviously messaging is a huge part of it. And, people think it's, writing, oh, I don't have writing. It's really an art. I mean, getting the right messaging for your business, understanding what your branding is and how that translates to a message, and either it's on your website or in your ads, on posts, anything that you do. If you're doing newsletters, all that kind of thing, you have to think about it. Am I being consistent with who I am and what my business is and my branding, as well as do I understand my client base enough to be talking and using the words that they understand that are going to get them interested. And that's, again, it's an art to really figure that out and use the right terms, as well as obviously the whole, when you're writing and doing your messaging, and that plays into the SEO, which then, plays into that automated type of system that you can get in place that kind of brings leads to you. So messaging, obviously, and the content that you're putting together is huge. You can't just throw things together and expect that it's going to, create leads for you. You have to really think about it and talk to your audience, get to know them, be personal with them, understand what their problems are. What are you solving for them? Really, that's the big thing. Why are they going to hire you? Why are they going to pay for your service? Why are they going to buy your product? What are you solving for them? Or it could be, maybe you're selling jewelry. So what about selling jewelry, right, is going to fulfill a need of your client, right? Does it make them feel good? Does it make them feel sexy? Do they need, it's part of who they are. It's part of their representation that when they go out and they're wearing a certain type of jewelry, right, and they're making a statement, right? So are you making the right statement for what you're trying to present to your customers? So no matter what that business is, you have to kind of think of it in that way. So yeah, I mean, like, it's just, the messaging is just ultra important, of course.
Yeah, I love that. It's like I often tell my clients, think of what your clients, what comes out of their mouth. That's what I say. What literally comes out of their mouth when they're talking about that problem, Do they say some technical jargon, or do they say, I feel stuck because, I haven't lost 30 pounds, or I'm grossed out because I have bed bugs. You know what I mean? Like, what are they saying that your service is a solution for, is always a great place to start, because if you're connecting with what they're saying, you start to build trust or empathy, and that's really important. And we'll go there in a minute. Tom, I want to have you jump into that. So you write ad copy and you write SEO copy, both of which requires really targeted, really getting to the nitty gritty of what there is to say. So what do you have to say about messaging and from those two angles, and how do you get it down to distill it down to the essence for the ad copy?
Yeah, what a great question. Thanks. It is so important on what we say. And even when we're doing ads, titles, you only have 30 characters. So you really have to make it count what you're saying. And it brings me to something that I always think about when I'm writing content is the radio station WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? Because that's what your customers are coming to your website for. They're not coming there because of you, and they don't care about you, and I don't mean that personally. They don't care about me either. They care about how you can help them. What's in it for me? So you have to answer that. So like Pia was saying, it's got to be very, it has to resonate with that audience for one. So we use the customer profile, and then we have to make sure we're solving their problem. We're hitting their pain points, and we want to be able to do that and make sure we're getting those in the headings or the titles of our ads, so they're very bold and prominent when people are in search results. Because if somebody is typing in, I work with a lot of local roofers. I work with a lot of roofers, and if somebody needs a roof repair and they're typing in roof repair in Detroit, well, if your ad says roof repair in Detroit, it's exactly what they're typing in. It's exactly what their pain point is. So if you can match your copy with their pain points, then that's the secret to copywriting. I mean, really, that's, if you can get that right and they go, wow, this person is talking to me. I'm sure think about when you were typing something into Google and you had a problem and you read one of the listings and you went, wow, that's exactly what I wanted. And you clicked on it and it went there. And that page, that landing page, it's important to have that page wherever that's going to keep solving that problem. And that's really, Ad copy is very important. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's such a great point, Tom. And if you have any tools that you could drop there in the chat, that might be helpful too for keyword research because there's data out there. This is almost like an open secret, but a lot of people don't think from this particular perspective. There's data out there that actually will tell you almost exactly what people are going to Google and searching for as it relates to your industry, your niche, the problem you serve. If you get creative or work with somebody who knows what they're doing, which we recommend, then you will have a really clear idea of the language that's already being searched. And when you have an understanding of the language that's already being searched, the art form of implementing that into your copy is really, really going to be critical. And that critical meaning important. That's only goes to show if a good strategy is using search to get leads because not every strategy is for everyone. We're highlighting 3 different strategies here tonight. There's a plethora. You could take out a billboard on the side of a road. That's a strategy too. But most advertising you're going to do are going to lead to a website landing page, maybe a home page, maybe a very specific page, but a landing page, right? So if all roads lead to the landing page, let's talk about that for a minute. I'll give Robert the floor first, and then we'll circle back. Robert, so you are creating blog posts that serve as a landing page because if you're out there promoting the blog post on LinkedIn, I mean on Pinterest or LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever we're doing, and you're driving them back to the website to read the entire article, let's say, now you've got a landing page. So now you're educating and informing them, but you're also driving them to take an action if it's done right. So what do you say, Robert, as blog posts relate to being a landing page? What are some of the important factors for consideration there?
Well, the thing about blog posts, as Josh was saying, each blog post you do is another entry into your website via different subjects. And it's kind of like weaving a net. Every blog post is like another knot in your net, and your net gets bigger with each knot that you put into it. So you can capture more people or users or people who are interested in your website. And so it's an entrance into your website. And something I want to emphasize with blog posts is it takes time for them to rank and for them to be found. So when you're doing a website, you want to make sure you start your blog as soon as you can, so you can. Those blog posts can sort of season or marinate and really get out there for people to see. And something you want to include in your blog post is you want to be sure to put in your expertise. This is something called EAT, which Google has. You want to have your expertise, your experience, your authoritativeness, and your trustworthiness. You want to have a address to your where you're located. You want to have table of contents, frequently asked questions, and a fairly easy small paragraphs that are easy to navigate, and a lot of images which help keep people engaged. And that can help people stay with your blog post, and they might even want to look at other blog posts that you have if they like the first one they go to. So each blog post that you put in is another entrance into your site, and is another opportunity to get more people interested in what you have to offer.
That's great. Thank you, Robert. And you mentioned something about going on to read other articles when you're on a blog post. That's an example of a call to action. You want somebody there, and then you want them to enjoy what they read and continue reading. That's a strategy that for those people who have an informational type business, that's a strategy for them. Other strategies are book a phone call, download a product, schedule an appointment, sign up for a newsletter, call now, right? So let's go to Pia, who is an expert landing page and website in general designer. Like I said, all roads lead to the website. So what do you have to say about number one, building an effective landing page, and 2, calls to action, and what those are really all about, how to make that effective?
Sure. Um, Yeah, so when you're going to build a landing page, and a landing page could be a website page that comes off an ad that you're placing on Google. That can be considered a landing page, or it could be your website, your whole website. Each page, in a sense, could be a landing page, depending on where you're posting and where you're putting that information. So you should think about every page being that possibility of capturing a lead or capturing the interest of a lead. And so, and this comes along too with your branding. And so you want to be consistent in the look and feel of your landing pages. Now, sometimes when you do a landing page that's attached to an advertisement that you might do from either Facebook or Google or LinkedIn or whatever system you're using, it might be a little smaller. It might be a little bit more bolder because you're just like, wow, I'm here, right? But like you clicked on this, don't go anywhere because I got something really great for you. So you kind of end up being maybe a little bit salesy, right? But it still has to look and feel like you, right? You and your business. So you want to keep that in mind, that you're still keeping with that consistency. And, when it comes to graphics and things that you're putting on there, all of that really does play into how you're attracting your leads and keeping them interested in what you're trying to do. It's kind of like, if they come to a landing page, is there a video that's very relative to the ad you placed or the information that they're looking for? Are they going to play that? Do the words coincide with that video? And then what are you asking them to do? How are you getting them to a place that's going to be meaningful for your business? Are you collecting emails so that you can send them newsletters and just kind of keep them going and attract them that way? Do you have a long sales cycle where it's not a one and done, where you get them to a landing page and then they say, yes, I want to buy this, right? There's a difference. You got to look at that and say, what language do I use when it's a one and done buy, or it's like more of a product buy? And when it's maybe a long-term service type buy, right? It is a bigger package that you want them to buy. And you have to think about that and all the words that kind of go around that, as well as your call to action. So you're kind of like, do you want them to buy something right now, right? What are you going to say to them? How are you going to get them to buy right now? Do you want them just to give you your email? Hey, just drop us a line because I send out really great stuff. So you want to be on my list because you don't want to miss out on all the great tips and tricks that I'm going to send to you in the newsletters. Or it's, hey, if you don't get this right now, I'm running out. I'm running out of this product. I'm running out of or I'm only having the sale for a little while because if I keep going, it's not advertisement. So I'm only going to sell 50 of these things. You better hurry up and click on this and buy it now, because otherwise it's gone and you'll never get it. And you want it to come across that way. You want them to be like, oh my God, I got to get it now, right? Like Facebook, the ads on Facebook, I'm sure if you're on Facebook, they have these things that they send, and you're like, well, I want one of those. So you click on it and you start going down, and next thing you know, you're buying some widget, right, from God knows where, and because it's on a 45% sale. And I'm sure we've all done that. Well, that's what you want to elicit in your clients, regardless if it's a product or a service, because you still want them to be like, I need this person. I need this person's skill. So what are you doing? What are you going to put on that landing page for your lead to say that when they read the landing page? I want this stuff, whatever it is. And then you get them to click. That call to action is short, it's exciting, and it makes them want. That's what you want to get them to. So
Awesome. That's great stuff. Wow. I don't know what to specifically respond to there about all of it. It's just so good. But it really comes down to, again, knowing the language your customer is expecting and what's going to get them excited. Not every copy is going to be the same. Not every client's going to be the same, or not everyone here's clients are going to be the same, I should say. You have a unique clientele. So otherwise, we're just sort of going by what we think, or we're just trying things, like Tom said, with spaghetti. But we can take a better approach the more targeted we get and the more we know. But let's go really quick to Tom, because Tom, I always say, like, it's half the battle is getting people there. And then the other half is when they get there that you actually convert or take an action in some way. So Tom kind of does both. He helps get people there, but then he also knows that when I get people there, it has to look right and kind of do what Pia said. So Tom, what's your perspective on going from an advertisement that draws someone in to the ultimately the landing page, which has them take the action? How do we keep that connection so that people don't say, I'm out
Well,
of here, you know?
I think this is one of the most important parts of this whole topic we're talking about. We started with the buyer persona and we have to get the right messaging, and now we're on to our landing pages. But what happens after that? We just get their contact information, and hopefully they'll take our email or our call. Well, what I like to do is I like to set up some automations. So this way, when somebody fills out my form, it'll automatically send them an email right now saying, hey Joshua, thanks for filling out my form for this free ebook. Hope you find it useful. I'd sure be glad to help you. If you would like a discovery call, I'd be glad to give you some tips and tricks on your own, right in your email, and have your calendar right there. So you could try to move them further in your funnel just through an email. And then you could even have more emails sent. So the automation doesn't have to be just one email, but then you have another one in 3 days. Hey, I didn't, hope you're learning from that ebook that you downloaded. If you had any more questions, or check out chapter 3, it's got this really cool tip about this. Hey, remember, you can always set up a free consultation with me if you'd like. Go ahead and click down there and schedule, something like that. Just keep it going. You're still continuing that. They're seeing your brand, they're seeing you go. And if you are doing ads, these people that land there, you want to have your pixel on there so you can do some retargeting. Retargeting is awesome. You don't have a lot of competition in your retargeting campaigns, and it just keeps your information with them as they're going across and surfing on the web and through social media. They keep seeing your ads. And what do they say? They got to see your ad. It used to be your logo at least 7 times to even know you exist. So you want to keep that going, those emails through automations, and then that retargeting. If you're doing paid ads, you just keep getting in front of them. That's how you keep that relationship going.
That's awesome. I mean, and ultimately, automation is really the key here. I mean, and what's right for you, sometimes people will come and say, you need an entire CMS system and you need a funnel that goes here this way and the other way, and here's a diagram. And that can get overwhelming sometimes for people who are just getting started out. And it can also keep your clients at a bit of a distance. If what you'd really want to do is get them on the phone, like Tom said, your automations are reinforcing that central call to action. You're not sending them people so you can send them stuff every couple of weeks and drive them in different directions. You're trying to reiterate, hey, I just want to get on the phone with you, or hey, I just really want you to buy this book, or sign up for this course. That's the core goal. So there's a tendency sometimes for us to build these big intricate systems, or think we need to build these big intricate systems, but really the approach is simplicity. And how can we automate so it saves you the time and not having to send anything manually, but you also know that you're not bombarding people with all kinds of just random emails. You're giving them things that they need, like Tom said, in a very simple way that guides them right back to original action. And those kinds of things can get someone who would have otherwise just signed up and left back in the conversation, because it does take several touch points before someone makes a purchase sometimes, or perhaps you have maybe you're promoting a webinar that you're doing in 3 months. So there's a bit of a lead time there. So their interest now versus 3 months from now is going to be very different. But if you're continuously sending them every month or every couple of weeks a reminder or something, it keeps them in the conversation, and then they might take action at some point. So if you don't have any kind of automation set up, I just definitely want to encourage anyone to have a conversation about that. That's a great reason to speak to one of us and see how we can give you some ideas about that. But yeah, knowing the call to action is really, really important. Is there anything else, Robert, before we go to the next conversation real quickly, and then we'll jump into a Q&A. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully you're getting some notes and taking some taking some notes and getting some good information. If anything we mentioned you'd like us to talk a little bit more about, you can put a note in the chat and we'll circle back in about 10 minutes. And we'll answer some questions and interact with some of you. But Robert, is there anything you want to say in general around the call to action or the the registration, so to speak, that gets the lead capture?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, I just want to give you a chance to chime in. All right, great. So we've talked, definitely the most important thing, just to recap, is knowing your audience. Then it comes down to really writing copy and content and creating brand elements that really speak to them, and of course guiding them towards the action that you want them to take, especially a first step. So, and then retargeting is another one. Let's talk about follow-up, because a lot of people get tripped up with and even overwhelmed with the idea that they're going to have all kinds of conversations or follow up with people. My best business is when I get people on the phone and do a 20-30 minute complimentary phone call. That's for me. For others, it might not be. But let's jump to Pia. What do you say? What do you have to say about follow up, Pia? When you get a lead captured, so to speak, or someone responds to filling out a form of some kind, let's just say, or calling you or scheduling. What do you have to say about following up, just in general?
Well, a lot of time follow up, and it depends, again, it really depends on the business and how you do it. For the type of business we're in, me personally, I like to have a great conversation with somebody and understand where they are, right? What is their expectation? What's their time frame? What exactly do they need? And so sometimes it's kind of, some people need the reminder, right? So you might put a reminder for yourself to call them in a couple of weeks, or to send them an email to say, hey, it was great talking to you. Would you like to talk about this or that, or moving forward on this and that? Some people are just, the kind of people who are just like, hey, I have this going on and I can't focus on doing anything else until this period. So you make sure that you're listening to the clients that, the leads that you have, that you're talking to them, especially if you're talking to them, really pay attention to what they're saying, and don't go against what they're telling you, in a sense, right? Don't call them every week when they're like, don't bother me for 3 months, right? You got to really keep in mind what they're talking about, because that's how it kind of equates into how you're going to service them, right? So God, is the service provider listening to me even? So, and that kind of follow up, but also tracking it. And because you're going to forget. If you talk to somebody a couple of weeks, you're going to be like, who was that person I talked to? Because you might talk to multiple people in a day, or even if it's just you're so busy doing work and, you end up forgetting. You have to track these people when you talk to them, and what was that conversation you had. And maybe is it something that you could automate, right? A lot of times you might be in business you can't automate, but sometimes you can just sit there and say, okay, well, this person said, they don't want to be contacted in 3 months. Okay, well, that's fine. I will do this email, write it now, and I'll schedule it to be sent in 3 months. I said, hey, do you want to catch up? Maybe you want to get on a call, let me know when you're available, kind of thing, right? So you could set that up prior. And that usually then, kind of negates you trying to remember everything. So really setting up the system and how you work. One, understand what works for yourself too, as far as process. And then automating what you can automate. And you don't have to have a big system to do it. It could be something very simple that you could schedule an email to go out at a specific time to a specific person. Or maybe you have a group of people and you can send out a general email to the group of people saying, hey, it'd be great to get, catch up again. It'd be great to talk about X next time we get on the phone or something, right? Of course, in mind, you want to keep on moving them towards either, signing on the dotted line or doing that purchase. So, obviously follow-up is really important. If it's not something that you could sell, one and done type of thing, that follow-up is key to getting their business at some point.
That's great. Of course, yes. Unless someone says, no, don't call me, if they expressed any kind of interest, they're probably someone you want to have scheduled to regularly follow up with at some point, or have it automated. I think that's really, really important. I've had so many times when, people have said not now, or I got the impression that they were not interested, and then months later they come right around and they're like, I'm ready to go now, and here's my deposit. But if it weren't for keeping yourself somewhat top of mind, and again, we always stress without being annoying and bombarding them. And we look, how many of us get way too many emails from certain people? I mean, unsubscribing to emails has become like a hobby, so we don't want to be one of those people. Well, our perspective in the webheads is we don't want to be one of those people. We want to be someone who's actually checking in because they care, and that they know that they could solve their problem if they still have their problem. And there's just a totally different approach, and we're probably moving into a era where people are not going to pay attention to bombardment of marketing messages as much as they might have in the past. It's overwhelming. So in this day and age, the radical thing to do is to actually be a little bit more subtle. And not too many people have really realized that's where the trend is going. We got a couple more minutes before we jump into Q&A. I want to do final thoughts. Thank you guys for being here. And again, we're just touching on subjects. Obviously, there's so much more depth to what we do. And that's why if anyone has a question specifically about what you're looking for, you can book a one-on-one, and we can actually like investigate your scenario and really give you either good advice, like we've given you guys some links, point you in the right direction, refer you to other webheads who might be a specialist for you, or work with you on a project if that's something you're looking to do, is to hire someone. But just want to mention that in a few seconds. I'll put a link here in the chat. I'll probably do that very quickly. But I want to give Webhead's final thoughts before we jump into Q&A. Robert, any final thoughts on anything related to lead generation that you didn't mention you want to mention?
That I didn't think of. Just make sure if you're doing the blogging, do it consistently and do it aggressively, because you want to have as many blog posts coming out as you can for Google to search your site as often as it can, and that'll help
Great.
help your rankings.
Absolutely, and don't give up. Takes a while to break through,
Don't
but if
give
you
up,
want to
because
do it,
it
don't
does
give
take
up.
time.
Yeah. Excellent. Pia, any final thoughts? Anything missing that you wanted to communicate?
Well, I would reiterate that, and it's just not really for blogging. It's actually everything you do. The consistency, even when it goes to updating your website with consistency, doing blogging with consistency, doing your ads, following up on leads with consistency. Everything is consistent. And only then when you're consistent and have a process, then you can actually evaluate if you need to change your process and improve in any of those points, to even, go to the next level kind of thing. Because at some point you may say, okay, well, I could grow my business by this exponential amount if, an ad may be people to my business. But if you aren't consistent in the processes that you're doing it, it's much harder to go to that next level, because you don't know, well, what do I increase to do that, right? So if you're consistent and you kind of have a track record of what you've been doing, there you go. Just duplicate it and grow it that way.
Fantastic. Tom, any final thoughts?
Yeah, a lot of thoughts, but I think what I want to kind of close in on is, we talked about a lot of different things, but one topic that always comes back, and even just to rank in Google through SEO efforts, is you need to have useful and helpful content. It has to speak to your customers' pain points, and it has to be useful and helpful. And Robert touched on it just for a brief second. And Joshua put in there the E from Google, the double EEAT, right? So the EEAT is the experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness. And authority, we've kind of been talking about this. The first part of authority is author. So by putting out blog posts, we're building up our authority in Google's eyes. So the more content we have, the more of authority we look like. So when we bring it back to that for blogging, we want to also maybe blog on other sites as well, like on LinkedIn's blogging section or Google's blogging area, wherever you can find where you can put out content with your author profile that will build your authority. So Google gives out some great information. They give it and they'll let you know, and you can go read all of their information about the EEAT and their useful and helpful guidelines, but just make sure it's good, unique, useful, helpful information. Speaks to your customers' pain points.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, Google is really getting specific on what they're looking for, and if you are approaching it with their guidelines and you're dialing it in, you have a chance to break through. We sometimes we think, who am I? I'm just getting started. What do I know? But there's a lane for you, content wise, and like Robert said, if you're persistent and consistent, you're going to potentially break through at some point, and now you're going to get served up much more in Google's eyes, and that can lead to a boost in awareness of what you're doing. But it does take time, and not getting frustrated while you're on your way there is a really important thing to do. Instant results, magic bullets, forget it. It's over. Doesn't exist. It's a myth. At least we won't sell you on that. It's focused, targeted, intelligent strategies. So speaking of that, I just want to put a quick link in the chat for those of you who may not want to stick around for a few minutes while we answer a few questions. This is a link right here to a page where you can find all of us with one click to our scheduling system or our contact form or our way to get in contact with us. Please take advantage. Again, we're no heavy-handed sales, none of that. We're just here to help. If you have any questions, we're happy to schedule a Zoom call or phone call, 20, 30 minutes, talk to you and see how we can help you. So please click that link if you can, if you're even considering booking a call with one of us. We have an upcoming webinar next week. I just launched it now. I will put a link here as well. If you want to get more of our content, we have a webinar. It's a little bit different. It's similar. There's 3 webheads, but we do presentations with slideshows, so it's a little more educational. And last thing, I promise we don't ask for much, but we like your opinions, and if we can improve what we're doing here, it's valuable for us. So I have a link to a little bit of a survey, just a quick survey. If you don't mind, click the link, do it later, but it helps us to know how we're doing and if we can improve, because really we're just here to help. So I'll pivot. We got a few minutes left. Does anybody have any questions? Or if you wrote one in the chat,
There is Joanna had she was
I
talking
see
about
Joanna. I want a landing page with a call to action. Yes. Joanna, please book a call with myself for sure. Probably Pia, probably all of us if you want. Take advantage. And we'll talk about our approach to a landing page. We'll assess your needs and we'll figure out what that takes to get that working. And you can possibly choose one of us to work with or go find someone else out there to work with. But at least we'll give you some good advice. But I don't want to answer too many questions if you know exactly what you're looking for. Get on the phone with one of us is the best thing to do. Anybody else have a specific question? Let's see. Joanna has a couple. Can't share my blogs anymore. Wix wants to control my site. Yeah, Wix, we could get into that, but Wix is a web builder platform. Some of these platforms, they're run by a corporation. They're what we would not call, you know what I mean? So they're not totally open source. You're open to the whims of these corporations, and they're limited in what they allow you to do in certain extents. So a blog on or a website on Wix is one option that could be relatively inexpensive and you can get something up quick, but then there's considerations around what you can and cannot do, and it might hinder your strategy. So that's a consideration if you want to move over to a different kind of a platform or a more open source alternative like a WordPress. Does anyone else want to just mention anything around the specific questions point that Joanna raises around a Wix? It says she wants to control all her shares and take over the whole process.
Yeah, I was going to say that's where WordPress helps, is that, with WordPress, you actually own your website and you can do whatever you want with it. With these others, Wix, Squarespace, Shopify, you're all corporate, and so they can control whatever you do with it, and you don't actually own your website. You only own it while you're paying the monthly fee.
Yeah, it's more like you're a rental versus an owner. And again, pros and cons. We're not here to talk negative about one way or the other, but it's about strategy. If a Wix serves your strategy and you can work it, great. If it doesn't, it might be time to move on. So Joanne, I think a call with any one of us, we can answer a lot of these questions for you on a call. Does anybody else, we got a few minutes, have any specific question? If you already wrote one in the chat, you can maybe just repost it. Or if you want to come off, say hi, introduce yourself. What had you come here tonight? How can we help? Feel free to come off mute. Love to hear from you. We're here to help. No pressure. Don't be shy though. Okay, well, I'll just kind of wrap things up here, and if anyone wants to chime in, now's your chance. Otherwise, you've got the links to book a call with the webhead. You've got the links to our next event if you want to come and be a fly on the wall in that discussion. And you've got the link to our survey if you wouldn't mind just helping us out with a very quick response. You're not going to get added to a mailing list, and we're not going to put you on a subscription. I just want to be clear about that. It's only for us to get feedback that we appreciate. So hearing no questions, seeing no questions, I want to thank you all for being with us. Those of you who stuck around, we hope you got some value tonight. And if we can help you in any way, we're here to help.
Thanks for coming
Have a
out.
great evening.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.